Hey guys, Kevin Smart for the series premiere of Heroes Reborn, episodes 1, Brave New World, and episode 2 called Odessa. This was a 2-hour premiere, 2 separate episodes, and you guys know that I haven't seen the original Heroes. I was gonna binge it, but other things got in the way, and I just didn't have the time to. And plus, I was like, you know what, I only heard the show was really that good in season 1, so I'm like, I'm not just gonna binge a show just because one season is good and the rest suck. Because I heard Heroes just got progressively worse and worse as it went on, to the point where it lost many people, and I found out what happens in the series finale. It's pretty ridiculous, and I really didn't know how this was gonna be. That trailer really did it for me, though. I was really sold on the trailer that was released. You guys can check out my trailer reaction to it. It looked like it was going to be a great show, and I was definitely interested in seeing how this was going to be. And I have to say that there were a lot of things that I really loved about this premiere, but I'm not hooked yet. I'm not hooked yet. And I'll tell you guys why. There are two major complaints that I have with this premiere. Other than that, though, I really do like where this is headed. There are some things that I definitely really do like, and I think, I think there are definitely some things that I'm looking forward to seeing how it all improves, definitely. So, basically, let's talk, first of all, let's just get into this, and I really love the way the first episode started. That was a really great way to start it. We see this butterfly fluttering by, and we see, right away, we see the main character, Noah Bennett, of course, and he basically is narrating a voicemail to his daughter Claire. He's trying to reconnect with her. And there's a rally convention for Evos. They're no longer called Heroes, they're called Evos. Okay. I don't know why they were called Evos. To me, Evos sounded like a good name for, like, evil heroes. That could have been really interesting, but that's not. Maybe that's why they're called Evos, because they think heroes are, like, evil. I think that's kind of interesting. But basically, it's a rally convention for Evos and humans together at the headquarters of the Primatech in Odessa, Texas. And a shadow falls over the convention, and an explosion just hits out of nowhere. There's a devastation everywhere as newscasters narrate what's happening. I mean, you can see how dangerous of a situation this is. This is basically like a 9/11 situation. I mean, this is like a huge terrorist attack, and HRG, and basically, he then, Noah then picks up his glasses, and he somehow seems to be the only one alive at first. I really love the way this was done, too. I thought it was really cool how, like, it was all in his point of view. Like, we heard the ringing coming from his ears, his glasses were cracked, and basically a few others start to move. He can't find his daughter, and we realize this was June 13th, 1 year ago. So then we cut to a man 9 months ago running from a couple of trucks filled with rednecks and dogs, and he covers himself in water in the creek and runs off. And then we're in this frozen tundra in Yanqing, China 4 months ago, and I really like the way they started the title of the episode, Awakening, which wasn't the title of the episode, but it originally was. And it shows in the Great Wall, and the man is chained to a way and has a knife, and people are chasing him. So he cuts off his own hand and flies away, and that was pretty big that he did that. I mean, I thought that was pretty interesting. So basically, 7 weeks ago, we then see a boy and his mother are at the Canada border, and basically the boy says that they're swabbing, testing for Evos, and his mom slams into the cars in front of and behind her while turning around and fleeing back to the U.S., and that's how we get introduced to the character of Tommy. And then we go to Chicago, Illinois, June 13th, today, and this is how we meet Zachary Levi's character, Luke Collins, who, we saw before in the very beginning. They had a son, him and his wife, Joanna, they had a son, and, basically, he pulls out a sheet of paper that says cockroach, and basically we see that there's this boy from before that walks towards a building and sees a coach from his school, and he says the password cockroach at a door to a meeting room, finding people sitting watching a news report about the year before, and an Evo supremacist named Mohinder Surza claim responsibility for the attack, and cut to the meeting, and they're mostly talking about vigilantes who are using their powers as modern-day superheroes, and the government's forcing Evos to register, and the man who can turn invisible when wet says there's someone else out there in the shadows, and the boy explains how worried he is and that his mom is sleeping with a gun under her pillow, and she texts him and he leaves with a customer card for Moe's ice cream left behind. The man sits at the bus stop where he boards and smiles. And basically, we then see a woman is chasing someone, pulls out a gun. She also has a sword on her back. That's how we get introduced to the character of Miko. And back to the meeting, we then see, we then of course see Luke. He basically starts talking about the future, and he says that's a good one. And he says on June 13th, his wife and him brought his 9-year-old son to Odessa to watch history being made. They believed in the cause and believed that change could come from that spot. And when they watched as as their son died in their arms, and you really see how much this affected them and why they want to do this. And he tells everyone they seem nice, but their powers just aren't natural, and there's only one solution. Basically, Joanna busts in and they open fire, start to kill the Evos in the meeting. A speedster or a fire starter, it doesn't matter. They just kill them all. They don't care who they are, and they're hellbent for revenge. And he says one of them got away and dropped this and picks up the ice cream card. And basically, what I like about the characters of Luke and Joanne is that they are doing things for good reason. Like, you understand why they're doing this. Obviously, they are the villains, but you understand, why this is happening. So basically, that's what happens with that. So Noah ruminates on memory, but he's actually doing it to sell a car, and that's who he is now, because he's now had his memory wiped, and he's now calling himself Todd, I believe. And he's now in Austin. He notices a car parked outside that seems to be watching him. And I thought that was definitely very interesting. And then we see in East LA, 2 people are making out in a closet, and he goes into a gym to give a talk to the kids at school he was at, and basically we meet the character of Carlos Gutierrez, played by Ryan Guzman, who I was very happy was in the show, because like I said, you guys know how much I hate The Boy Next Door. I really felt this was going to be the show that could prove this guy is a very good actor, and yeah, he was very good in this show. Basically, he talks about how he was a soldier in Afghanistan, now he's giving a speech, and he has a lot of alcohol problems, and you can just see how much that affects him. So then basically Tommy checks out Emily, who you can tell right away he has a huge crush on, but her boyfriend beats on him a bit. He thinks about using his powers, but holds back, and Tommy hears that Coach Lewis and 6 other people died in a fire last night. Something I like about Tommy's character is that he already knows about his powers. He knows what's going on with him, and basically that's what's going on there. So a Chicago PD precinct and a man is waiting to be questioned, and the man from the bus stop comes in with a briefcase full of pennies, and he picks one out and talks to the man. He spins the penny and says, "Penny, for your thoughts." He seems to have a power similar to the Haitian, able to take people's memories. The man is left with no memory of the conversation or the boy. When the actual detective comes in to talk to him, he knows nothing. So Noah is at the car dealership talking to a woman who apparently is his fiance. He sees the car outside, and like I said, he's going by Ted. So we then see a boy holds up an address, walks into an apartment with loud music playing. He clearly doesn't know where he is, and the music gets louder, and he opens a door to see basically Miko making original swans. And his name is Ren, and he's a famous video gamer and an expert at Ever now. A secret message unlocked in the game brought him to Miko's address, and he has met Miko on her door in her apartment, and he sees a painting of Ever now, and Miko looks at the door as if she's seeing it for the first time, and she just asks, Ever now? And basically Emily then approaches Tom. We then back to Emily and Tommy's plot. Emily approaches Tommy and talks to him about the ice cream shop she works at, and I found Emily and Tommy's scenes to be some of the more, I think, compelling scenes of this episode, definitely. It's something I thought was very well done. So she asked him to come in and interview for a job there. She apologized for Brad, her boyfriend's behavior, and Tommy gets a random text that says, "Don't trust anyone." He doesn't know who this is from. I'm thinking, I don't know who this is from, but clearly there's someone out there that's saying, "Don't trust anyone." We don't know who that is. So Carlos and his nephew Jose talk about El Vengador, which is the Evo vigilante that's cleaning up the town. And Carlos's brother Oscar isn't happy about Jose's hero worship of the vigilante. And the shop Oscar runs is a matter of contention between the brothers, and it used to be their dad's shop. So Jack basically and his fiance, his name is not Jack. His name is Noah. I don't know why I call him Jack. Noah and his fiancée is talking about wedding plans. He sees the car from earlier outside. Someone gets out. He lures the guy away, confronts him. And the guy is Quinton Frady, who is a conspiracy nut and knows that Noah is, that Ted is really Noah Bennett. And he worked for Renitis, which secretly owed Primatech, and he's convinced that Noah knows something about June 13th that no one else does. But it doesn't seem like Noah knows what he's talking about, because obviously he had his memory erased, so this is all like, he doesn't understand anything that he's saying. So Quinn shows him a manuscript by Sharish that wasn't even published, talking about the drastic increase in Evos. If they were here to save us, I would know. And basically, the cops come up and he says June 13th did not happen like they say it did. And basically, Noah says that he went over that day 1,000 times. His daughter died on that day. And you can see that there are things that he definitely does remember. While they supposedly did erase his memory, there are things that he remembers. And I thought that was quite interesting that we saw that. So back to Tokyo. Ren says Miko is Katana Girl, a special character in Evernow that has never been unlocked, and she looks exactly like her as he shows in a comic. And he says she swore vengeance on those who took her father and is basically the coolest. And on the back of the comic is a picture of her father. And basically, Noah then opens a stashed away notebook and sees a card for Lumiere, ophthalmology, relocated from Odessa to Dallas. And Carlos is then drinking. He sees a news report about El Vengador and the hero in a luchador mask, and now we get to see him in action. A woman is being chased. He goes to work. He has slightly increased speed, reflexes, and greatly increased strength. 2 gunshots from the girl, and it was a setup. He's hurt. He throws a knife at her, killing her, and he manages to escape in the darkness, and that was pretty crazy, I have to say. So the next morning, Carlos goes to the shop. There's blood leading down to the pit under the carports, and Oscar's very hurt. Carlos puts the piece together that he's El Vengador, because obviously that's who he is, and Oscar falls to the ground. The gunshot is bad. He, too, has been tracking conspiracy. He tells Carlos that Jose and others will need a firm hand, a hero, and Oscar ends up dying. So El Vengador dies very quickly, and I thought that was pretty interesting, and we saw that. So back to Luke and Joanne. He seems to have second thoughts about tracking down the kid from the church meeting, saying they should just go to LA and track down the vigilante. And she says that this kid has powers and therefore needs to die. Little do they know, Emily and Tommy are during the interview, and they're talking away. So obviously, this is a very dangerous situation, because obviously Tommy has powers, and this could end up very bad for him, because obviously they're going after people who have powers. So he sees Luke sitting alone in a booth and runs up to him, and Joanne says that she can't believe that he made it out alive, and shows her gun, and they bring him out the back. Emily follows innocently, saying you forgot to try on your uniforms. She doesn't really think anything of it. And, these two are just trying to connect. That's what they're trying to do here. And Joanne turns her gun on Emily. Tommy reaches out. He zaps Joanne and Luke both away. And that was pretty awesome. Something I've definitely really loved is just seeing all the powers that they have. And his powers are really cool. The way he can just zap people away. That was really cool, and I definitely really love seeing that. And after Tommy runs off, Emily then drives after him, and she asks where did they go, and he says he doesn't know. She tells him he doesn't have to worry about his secret of being an Evo, and thanks him for saving her life. And obviously, this is no shock to her, because, Evos are out there. She knows what an Evo is, and so what I like about that is that they don't have to go through the whole stress of, oh, what are you, how does this happen? We don't need all that exposition, because they know what Evos are. So Carlos and Jose talk on a rooftop, and Jose says that he never got a chance to tell him, to show him that has to be alone, and basically he is an Evo, and he reaches down and phases his hand through the edge of the roof, and he probably is the youngest Evo we meet, because this is a young kid here. This is not a teenager. This is a young kid, and I thought it was quite interesting that we saw that. So this could end up very bad for Carlos, because he obviously has an Evo, and that could end up very bad for him, and that's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. So Noah goes to Lumiere Ophthalmology in Dallas, and the receptionist insists he'd never been there before. There's no one on the sign of the sheet at all. He says, so see more clearly, and she jokes. She says, sorry, we have no doctor here named Seymour, then pulls a gun on him, and the Haitian Renee then emerges from an office. There's surveillance and computers in the room behind him, and Miko then enters a room. She finds under the floorboards a sword, and she says the sword is and basically there's a note, and it says, save me, the sword is the key. And she uneaves the katana and turns into a digital version of herself. She's now in a video game. And this, I think, was really cool. She's in Evernow. She starts fighting like a badass against samurai warriors. She takes out several in short fashion, and one says you will never see him. I mean, that was really awesome. I definitely really love seeing that. That's something that they definitely are doing very well, is updating it to, modern-day audiences. That's something that they did a very good job with in this episode. So Noah and Renee meet up. The Haitian give him his glasses, then starts to strangle him. Noah then pulls a gun in a struggle, eventually shoots his friend, and he asks if he was trying to kill him, and Renee basically responds that he told him to. He tells him he needs to forget, and it's coming, and then dies, and I'm like, what's coming? And obviously, he's freaking out, and then we see a narration from Mohinder Sharice, and he says that we're in the Arctic, and a girl then raised her arms, setting out the Northern Lights and controlling them. They start to circle, and she said, it's happening faster than we thought. I don't think I can control it much longer. And we don't know what this is, but obviously something's really bad, and that's how the first episode ended. Now, me personally, I really didn't feel we needed a second part to this episode. I didn't feel this episode needed to be 2 hours. I just personally didn't. Was the second episode good? Yes, but I thought the first episode was satisfying enough, and I have to tell you guys, when the second episode came on, I kind of started to lose focus because this is not the most compelling show ever. It's just not, and I'd rather have, you know, a 2-hour premiere of a show I already know versus a 2-hour premiere of a show I do know. You know, I don't know. This is not really something, you know, the 2-hour premiere I think was a cool idea, but you really didn't need to do it for this. I felt like the first episode was satisfying enough. Yes, it was slow, but I liked how slow it was, and I'm going to get into that. Now let's get to part 2, though, because there's obviously a lot to talk about here. So Noah cleans his hands of Renee's blood, and basically we then see Emily and Tommy. They're sitting in a shed talking about his power and how it works, and he compares having a power to being a witch in Salem. And it's pretty much just true. You know, he talks about how people hate us, they want them dead, and he says when he was 7, people took him to a place for those powers, and when he was in a room with toys and no windows, which could possibly be Primatech, and he thinks about it whenever he's scared, and Emily then holds out a flower and asks him to make it disappear, and he does, and, you know, she thinks it was really cool, but Brad was actually watching through the window, and that's something I thought was very interesting, and basically, Brad now knows that Tommy is an Evo, and this could be very, very bad for Tommy. And I have to say, I really love this scene between Emily and Tommy, definitely. So, Noah bails out Quinn and tells him up front about his encounter with Renee, and then Emily goes off and Brad tells Tommy he saw what he did, and obviously that's not good for him. So, Luke and Joanne are in a room with no windows and a lot of toys, and they talk about how the kid was a teleporter, and where the hell are we? And Luke talks about how they found a T-Rex that their son had, and reminisces that they might be in hell, and she says that she drives her itchy trigger fingers keep them going, and none of this would, and she talks about how none of this would have happened if she hadn't convinced her to take Dennis. So basically, you can see again the pain that they're going through. I just kind of feel bad for them, honestly, because they're just trying to they feel bad obviously for what happened to their son, and I kind of feel bad for them, even though, you know, it's bad what they're doing. I do kind of feel bad for them. So Ren goes to apologize to Miko for his forwardness. He enters the silent, empty apartment, sees his computer with Ever now playing on it, specifically with Katana Girl fighting, and kicking some creepy samurai ass. Her dad sees her and says, "You're finally here." She gets overwhelmed, though, and Ren jumps in the game with his character, and he holds back the enemies while she goes after people. I know this is weird, but you kind of have to suspend your disbelief with this. That's kind of what I did. That's just how it works with this. But Tommy tells Brad that if he wanted to make him disappear, he could have, but didn't. And Brad wants a favor to drives him to his house, and the man from the bus stop is watching. So I was really wondering, I was just thinking, okay, can we trust this Brad kid? I didn't really know what was going to happen with this. But basically, then we see Carlos and Jose are eating after Oscar's funeral, and a priest comes in to talk to Carlos. He seems to know about Oscar's secret, and seems to be encouraging Carlos to do something similar. So, I'm kind of thinking that Carlos might have some sort of ability as well. I don't know, but that's kind of what it seems like they're hinting at. Because clearly he knew that Oscar was he was in fact, he was in fact an Evos, and, obviously, his son, his Jose is too, so basically, I thought that was definitely very interesting. Sorry, guys. This show, as you can tell, there's a lot going on, and I'll get into that. That's one of my problems with the show, actually. So Tommy and Brad then go to Brad's house, and he asks him to make his abusive stepfather disappear so he'll stop beating on him. And this I thought was really interesting. We actually got some character development from Brad. He's not just the douchebag boyfriend. He has a character, and I thought that was definitely very well done. And he leaves, and Tommy thinks about it for a while, but chickens out and leaves. And the bus stop man then watches him go. And basically, Noah and Quinn are talking about Renitus and the way they're framing Evos, and Noah says that they need to go to Odessa and get his flies, track down Molly Walker, who can find any Evo just by thinking of them, who can find any Evo just by thinking of them. And Molly Walker, I believe, is a character from the original series, so I'm not sure, though, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So inside Ever now, basically, Miko finds her father, but he says there's more for them to do, and just she gets knocked out, she basically destroys the sword and reappears in her apartment. Actually, no, she gets rid of the sword and reappears in her apartment. That's what happens to her. So, a club no Evo sign, and people are gambling, and then we meet this attractive redheaded girl. She sits alone in the bar, and basically then we meet this other girl who walks in, sits next to her, and the girl then goes to the crabs table, starts flirting with a guy playing, and the way his dice are falling, it sure seems like he's using a power, and the two of them leave, and we can definitely tell that he is an Evos. You can just tell. And bus stop, basically, then we see this bus stop man. He visits his stepdad with a penny in hand, and basically Carlos is drinking, looking at Oscar's board of conspiracy. El Vengador had been accused of killing 3 police officers by a patrolman. He makes a connection, and basically Ren is then taking care of Miko, who he calls a miracle. She wakes up and realizes everything Ren had told her was true, and she feels like she had a mission and must go back, and she realizes the office building, Yamagata Tower, looks just like the tower in Ever now that her father was taken to. So she unsheathes the katana and determined to go there because obviously there's a reason why she went there. She didn't just go there to go there. Obviously, her father wanted her to go there for a reason, and she wants to know why. And it's also the only way she can connect with her father. So it's really a win-win for everyone. So then we get introduced to this new girl whose name is Zoe, and basically this guy with some kind of, we don't know who he is, but he just has some sort of ability with dice playing. You know, he definitely has some ability with that. They have a drink in his hotel room. She throws a knife at him, and he catches it with telekinesis. She tries to blackmail him, asking for the money, and instead he goes to attack her. She burns his face. He starts force choking her Vader style. 2 randoms come to her rescue and knock him out, and basically this whole thing, I would have cared about more if it was introduced in episode 1. I just felt this was a bit too much, I have to tell you guys. Definitely, this whole plot I thought was a bit too much. I will talk about, but it's a lot going on this show, and that definitely is one of my problems, which I will get into when I'm done reviewing this. But basically, Noah and Quinn show up at the ruins of Primatech and bust in, and Noah's convinced that something is still going on deep underground. And basically, this is one of the best scenes. By far, one of the best scenes of the episode was definitely this scene. I thought this was a fantastic scene. I really loved this scene. So he opens a secret room with his files and others, and it's a list of individuals missing from the summit is there, and Claire Bennett and Molly Walker are the 2 top names on the list. So Oscar's name is 3rd, and Quinn is desperate for information. Now we know that Oscar's dead, so it very well could be true that Claire is dead. And basically, he reveals, and basically now we know why Quinn is so desperate for information, because his sister is an Evo, and someone took her. And he talks about how he couldn't stop them, he's just trying to find her, they vow no more secrets, and I thought that was very interesting. I definitely love seeing that. But then we realize that we see Primatech, and 3 levels down, there are Luke and Joanne. So obviously, this is not going well for anyone. So Luke is discovering something while Joanne tells him she feels in her bones that what they're doing is right. And he realizes there's no light switch and starts shooting out the lights in the room. And the big chalkboard was actually a one-way mirror, and he works on busting it out. And Brad then comes to Tommy, hugs him, thanks him for disappearing his stepdad, and he promises not to mess with him or let anyone else mess with him, and says his secret is safe, and Emily sees them hugging and is confused. The problem is with this whole thing is obviously Tommy likes Emily, and he's probably going to have to resist that temptation he has of being with her, and I think that really makes him a much more compelling character, and I really do like seeing that, especially what they're doing with Brad. That's not really something I expect them to do, and I really like that they did that. So basically, Carlos confronts the officer that lied to set up El Vengador. He gets a name from him of the man behind it with some violence. And then we meet Taylor and Zoe. They're at a new bar having a drink and icing Zoe's head. And she talks about the money is in his room was all I had and I need to disappear. And basically, they have a whole conversation with that. So Carlos goes to talk to the priest, and basically he knew that Oscar was El Vengador, and he also had an underground railroad for Evos to help them escape to Canada, and Captain James Deering and other police are trying to take the railroad down, and the priest asks for Carlos's help in getting 2 Evos out of the country and reveals he too is one with the ability to turn into mist. So definitely Carlos, it seems like everyone he's meeting at this point is an Evos, and this could either be really, he could usually either use this to his advantage, or this could be his downfall. Like, I really feel that either Carlos is going to use this to advantage, or he's going to die, because again, this is a limited series, so really anything is possible, and that's something I really do like about this. So Emily and Tommy talk, and he was honest with her about what happened. I was happy that he was honest with her about that. And he tells Emily about the anonymous text helping him out, and she opens a vat of ice cream, and they find the flower. And basically, he said when he disappeared, the Collins, he was thinking about the place they took him as a kid. So basically, they've now broken out, and someone opens a door to find them there, and they bring him further at gunpoint and find a fully operating room, and Joanne opens fire, guns everyone down, and Noah goes toward the gunfire, leaving Quinn alone outside, and sees that all data is lost on Molly, and basically they figured out a way to monetize the Evos, and basically that's what one of the workers tells him. So we then see a mother and daughter come down to the secret room to get to the boat to take them to Vancouver. She has a Midas touch and turns a bolt into 24k gold to thank Carlos for his help. And again, it seems like everyone he's meeting is this Evos. And then we see Luke and Joanne are in Noah's car with his files, a full list of all the freaks' names, addresses, and Luke is worried about it. He doesn't seem happy to have this list at their disposal, and basically we cut back to Quinn. He was shot, and they stole the car, and Renatez is going to launch a product called Epic, and they need Molly to launch it. And back to Zoe, she's coming out of a drug sleep, and Taylor and the TK are making out. Yeah, she's bad news, and basically the techie calls someone and says that they have Molly Walker, and Zoe, aka Molly, looks freaked out. So basically what they're making us think is that Zoe is actually Molly who's gone into hiding, and that I think could be very interesting if that's what's going on there. So basically, at the end of this episode, Miko gets to the tower. There's a ton of samurai enemies. She sheathes the katana, and instead is in the real-world tower at Yamagata, surrounded by a bunch of guards. One of them tries to take the blade. She says, "Don't touch my sword." She then commences kicking some ass, and basically, that's how the episode ends. So, overall, guys, I thought this was a good premiere, but as you can tell, a shit ton of stuff happened in this premiere. My biggest complaint with this show, well, two things. One is that it is very, very convoluted. I mean, it's so many storylines and so much to keep up with, and in my opinion, I feel it's a bit much. I really do. It's a bit... I understand some of the storylines need to be in there, but I will tell you that I do think every storyline is somewhat compelling, but there are more characters that are going to be introduced. Like, we haven't got introduced to the character of Erica yet. We're going to get introduced to her. We haven't gotten introduced to the character of Melina yet. We haven't gotten introduced to these characters yet. So, you know, we haven't got introduced to them yet, but we're going to, and that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. I really love Carlos' storyline, though, because, like I said, this is definitely going to be his downfall. The entire cast is great. Everyone really does a great job, and, you know, one of the best parts of the show by far is just seeing what has happened to all of the, you know, Evos, basically, what have happened to them. That definitely is very interesting to see what's going on with that, because, of course, you know, when, you know, what do you do when you're an Evo? It's kind of like being a slave, and I like the way they're kind of comparing that. That's definitely something I thought was very well done here. My other problem with the show, though, is that it's not as impressive as it was when it first came out. When Heroes first came out, Arrow, The Flash, shows like that were not on TV. Unfortunately, the show is just not as good as those shows. I really do like where the show is going, but it does feel like a bunch of different shows, and I think it's going to be hard to connect all these together. They are definitely connecting together, because like we saw in the promo, they do all team up, and they are going to bring them together, but it just seems like it's going to kind of be a hard thing to tie all these things together, and we'll have to see how that works. But I definitely like the characters we were introduced to in this episode, but I feel like there's going to be more characters, and I'm really not a fan of that, because I'd rather this show focus on a few core characters and not like 500 characters. And yeah, we did mainly only focus on like Miko, Tommy, Carlos, Noah, and then, of course, we focus, you know, also Luke and Joanne, and then, of course, now Molly Walker, we focused on them. But it just seems like there's going to be a lot more we're introduced to, and I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. The screenplay, I think, you know, the teleplay of the show, I think, is very good. I liked how slow-paced the first episode was. The second episode, I thought, was a bit too fast-paced. There was way too much happening in the second episode, definitely. I still really liked it, but I thought there was a bit too much happening, and maybe if they can find a balance, I think this show could be very, very good. I think this could be a very good limited series, but they just need to find a way to add all this together and not make it all feel very convoluted, because I don't want this to be a show where I'm like, oh yeah, this happened to this character, and that character was there, this character was here. I don't want that, you know. The reason I love Sense8 so much is because they were able to balance all the characters' equal amount of screen time. They were able to make you connect with all them. And I have to say that not every character in the show is compelling. Like, Miko's a great character, Carlos is a very interesting character, Tommy's a very interesting character. I even like what they did with Brad in this episode. I also really like the character of Quinn. I think all these characters are very, very good, but I just feel there's a bit too many characters in this show, and maybe they will be able to balance out eventually, but right now, it just seems like a bit much to me. Now, the action sequences are obviously great, they look incredible, and the other thing I like is that the tone of this show, it's really fun, but also feels pretty realistic. It feels like if there were actual, heroes out in the world, this would probably be what would happen, they'd have to be in hiding and things like that. That, I think, is very interesting. A lot of people said this show isn't interesting, and I'd have to disagree. I think the plot is extremely interesting, and I really like what they're doing with that. That's something that I'm definitely very interested in. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this premiere. I know this was kind of a convoluted review, but like I said, this is a very convoluted show, so it's hard for me to really review it. Definitely next week's review will probably be a lot better. If you guys didn't like this review, I'm sorry. It was 2 episodes, but like I said, I really didn't feel we needed it to be 2 episodes. I felt the first episode was enough, then we could have gone to the second episode, but I will say there was more character development in the second episode, so I can understand that, because the first episode was definitely more of a character-driven episode, and the second episode was more of, like, action, but I still thought both those episodes were really great, and I think this show, I'm not hooked yet, I'm really not hooked on this show yet, but I definitely am getting there. Like, I definitely am getting there with a lot of things. There are a lot of things I really am enjoying, and we'll have to see where it all goes. But that's basically my review. I know this was a very long review, but that's basically my review. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Do you think the heroes can redeem itself? I think it has. I think this episode really proved that they can redeem themselves. Do you feel the show is too convoluted? Do you think the show is anything better than, do you think the show stands out on its own when you have shows like Arrow, The Flash, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Do you think that kind of stands in the way of making it better than it is? But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for, I think, a movie review. I'm not sure. We'll see, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.